Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome back to Talking Knockouts from HDR Media. It might be International Weekend friendlies ahoy, but there's no friendlies in boxing. It's all gloves, rings, bells, and 12 rounds of absolute carnage. And we are here to run through what could arguably be the greatest card put together by any promoter, living or otherwise. We have got Canelo versus Triple G3. Look back, the definitive word. We have got Joyce versus Parker. One is undefeated. The other has a 70% knockout rate. That is going to be a barnstormer. And then, of course, we've got Fury versus AJ and Shakur versus Stevenson. And joining me, as always, is our resident Talking Knockouts entrepreneur, aficionado, guru, the Eddie Hearn of HDR Media, Mr. Matt Phillips. How are you, sir?
The only link I've got to Eddie is he lives about 5 miles down the road in a much bigger house.
In a much bigger house. Yeah, I was going to say in a much bigger house. How are you, first of all? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm chuckling that people wait months for a Talking Knockouts to roll along. Now we've done 2 in a week, 2 in 7 days. Shows you these big fights, you see.
We react to the big fights as when they happen. If you do like the show, give us a like button. If you're watching on catch up, let us know you've watched. Let us know what you thought, your opinions, your feelings, your predictions. And if you're with us live, get involved as always. So let's start. Obviously, we're looking back at Triple G, Canelo, the definitive word. What are your thoughts as we sit here another week on then?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of disappointed in the third fight, because we kind of bigged it up last week as the first fight was really good, albeit a robbery for Golovkin, and then another barnstormer in the second, which in my eyes, Canelo just edged. And then it was all laid up for the third one. But in the back of our minds, and we were talking, Golovkin's had like 5 fights in 5 years. Yeah. He's now 40. He looked really shaky in his previous fight to that against the Japanese champion Murata. And so it proved, because for about the first 8 rounds, I didn't give Golovkin a single round. And when you're looking, and then when you're 8 rounds down, you're then looking for a knockout, aren't you? And of course, you ain't gonna be knocking Canelo out. So it was disappointing. I mean, I don't even know what Golovkin's corner's master plan was. I mean, they kept saying to him, "Keep to the plan." What that was, I don't know. But they soon kind of like, just after 8 rounds, that was gone. And it was kind of like, throw some shots, more than 1 or 2 shots. You ain't going to hurt Canelo if you're just throwing single shots. And Golovkin's punch output was far below anything he'd done in the first 2 fights, which tells the story of a 40-year-old against a still hungry champion.
So combination punches weren't there for Golovkin then?
He was just like, he seemed... I mean, look, we know in the first fight, Golovkin did all the pressing. And then in the second fight, Canelo said, I'm going to do the pressing. And it happened again in the third. Golovkin seemed to be just on the back foot a lot. And he's got, even Canelo said he's probably got one of the best jabs, if not the best jab in boxing, which used to set up all these power shots. But for whatever reason, he seemed cautious to me and didn't want to throw it. And he felt like he might get countered. Canelo's a good counter puncher, even though he presses forward. He actually throws a lot of counters.
Yeah.
I just think Golovkin, I don't want to say he was in there. He looked like he was in there because he had to be, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I do see what you mean. What's next for the boxers then? Who's next? What's next? What's the plan for both now?
That's a really good question. I was mulling this over this morning, actually, when I was prepping for the show. For Golovkin, where he's been ordered, because this was at super middleweight, right? So he's been ordered to go back down to middleweight and have a mandatory against Erislandy Lara, who also gave Canelo a pretty good fight, albeit a few years back. So, I mean, he's he's in the twilight of his career as well, I would say. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. I would personally like to see Golovkin retire. Don't think he's really got to prove anything to anyone. There'll always be that shadow over his career. He did win that first fight. He was robbed of that first fight. I don't mind saying that. And a lot of boxing people will agree with it. And I don't know, it just feels like he's faded a little bit since then. So Chris Eubank Jr. called him out, looking beyond Conor Benn next month, and said, come over here and let's have a bit of a knockabout. I mean, he had a great fight with Kell Brook over here, Golovkin. Kell did all right in that fight, to be fair. And again, he faded after that as well. So I would like to see Golovkin retire, but there is options there. Whether or not he wants to go out on, a warrior of that ilk wants to go out on a defeat, I don't know.
So a Golovkin Eubank doesn't really sort of, float your boat.
It does from a spectacle point of view, an excitement point of view, but from a Golovkin point of view, not really, because he could end up losing. I mean, he's pretty handy, isn't he? He's decent now. Whether or not he gets through Conor Benn at this catchweight, which is a weird fight, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because he's.
Is that dangerous as a boxer to look past the opponent you've got in front of you?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you could say that in any sport, couldn't you? At tennis, when you're trying to get through Wimbledon, I've only got to get through this round to get to Nadal, wherever it might be. So yeah, absolutely, it is dangerous because it means you're not particularly focused.
The details, yeah.
And with Eubank Jr., of course, they're fighting at a catchweight, which means Conor Benn's having to come up from his usual weight, which I think is off the top of my head, light welter, something like that. Mm-hmm. And of course, Eubank's going down from middleweight, so he'll be drained at the scale. Whereupon Conor will be a little bit more nearer to his normal walk around weight. So it is a dangerous fight. But obviously, Eubank Jr. is looking around and thinking, that's a huge payday. Golovkin in London, one last hurrah at the O2. Be a big
and the man to put him down and in the career. That's also,
Well, exactly. He's looking at that as well. But if you're in the Golovkin business, though, I'd like to see him retire. But the problem with boxing is you have a lot of yes men around you because everyone earns a pound note, don't they? Off the back of you've got one more fight left in you. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he got 20 million for the fight against Canelos. It's not
bad work, is it? Not bad work, is it?
I mean, he never looked like he was going to win.
I'm not quite sure I'd like to get him punched in the face. All that.
No, maybe not from Canelo particularly. Exactly.
What is worth? What is every punch worth? What, £500,000 or whatever?
You have to work it out. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, every punch is like 50 grand, 100 grand. Just smile through it. Thomas Chapman, welcome in. He says, "I agree with you, Matt. Very dangerous." Canelo, then what's next for him before we move ourselves on?
Well, Canelo's in a funny space right now. So as soon as the fight ended, he said, "I've hurt my wrist," and he's had. I think he's had like a minor surgery on it previously.
Okay.
Which in the comments might be able to tell me if that's correct or not. So he's been talking about having a year out. I think Canelo's in the wilderness a little bit now because a lot of people in the States, Teddy Atlas being one, said he didn't look that good either, particularly. He said, if you was a great champion, Canelo always says, I'm a great champion. Teddy Atlas, Hall of Fame legend, said, you should be knocking Golovkin out then. And actually, you gassed after 8 rounds, which is what gave the window of opportunity for Golovkin to come in and pick up some rounds late doors. And the scorecards was 115, 113, remember? Could almost been a draw, which would have been ludicrous.
It wasn't quite how I had it. But yeah.
I had 118, 110.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Which I think was probably more reflection. But Canelo, where does he go? So I think a spell on the sidelines. Let's remember he's had about 7 fights since November 2019 because he went up to light heavy and beat Kovalev, then came down for the Billy Joe Saunders and the Caleb Plant, then went back up and fought Bivol at light heavy, which he lost. And he says he wants to avenge that defeat. Is he looking a bit weight? Is his body now not acclimatizing to the fact he's gone up in weight, so taken punishment, gone back down again? It doesn't do you any good. Roy Jones Jr. is always the one everyone said he went from, the middleweights up to the heavyweight division, 1 heavyweight title, and then got blown out in all his next fights. So I think he's in the wilderness a little bit because he wants to go and avenge Bivol. I don't think he wins that. And whether or not he fights Bivol is another matter because he's got to fight Gilberto Ramirez, who's 44-0, by the way, in November, Bivol. That's a tall order. Yeah. He might fancy a bit of Canelo if he were to beat Bivol. Do you know what I mean? That's a dangerous fight. And then if he stays at super middle, he's got David Benavidez, who's like the super middleweight Deontay Wilder at the moment. He's had something like 25 fights, 23 knockouts. Mexican, again, we were talking about last week. Canelo likes to fight on Mexican holidays. He's Benavidez, as the name suggests, he's a Mexican American. That would obviously fill Vegas, but a dangerous fight for him. He's coming through. He's hungry. He wants to win titles, and he can pack a punch. So Golovkin's future is probably looking retirement, but not looking rosy if he sticks around. And Canelo's got hard fights. Or it might be one of these ridiculous super fights we were talking about. Does he fight Usyk at a ludicrous catchweight or something crazy? These kind of WWE fights that everyone, mainstream people, will tune into because it's a spectacle.
The exhibition bouts.
Oh, yeah, albeit under professional things. But, like these ludicrous catchweights. There you go.
Just before we move on, what does moving up and down the body weight do for a boxer's body?
Yeah, I mean, he caught up with, in a similar sense, he caught up with Ricky Hatton in the end because even though he fought a light welter, he would blow up hugely to about 13 stone. Then he's got to get back down to like 10 stone. So you've got to keep, he kept having to shift weight. And with Canelo, you know, when you're going up to light heavy, you're having to pack on. He's only 5'8", remember? Only a few inches taller than me.
Is it harder going down the weight or up the weight?
I think probably, if you think probably what Canelo's walk around weight is, it's probably easier for him going up. Whether or not you've still got the same mobility, you're probably still punching the same. You still got probably the same power, but if not, maybe a little bit more. But maybe you're going to be slower in your reactions because you've got that much more build. And if you're coming back down again, then you're having to keep draining, which might leave you a little bit drained. You know, when people they sort of dehydrate themselves to get to the scale, and then sometimes you see these hydration clauses. Oh, you can't hydrate more than, I don't know, half a stone or whatever, or a stone or whatever it might be. Because on weigh-in day, people generally, if there's not a hydration clause in there, people generally come in about a stone more than what they were 24 hours ago, or maybe even 2 stone in some respects because of the water weight. So that's not healthy, particularly. You see it in the UFC a lot. People getting drained at the weight, can't do the fight, they collapse at the scales. Just shows you the stress on your body.
Absolutely.
In boxing, a little bit different, but Roy Jones Jr. is the blueprint now. Went up, and down, and in the end, he was shot. He was a shot fighter.
Okay. Before we go on to the heavyweight bouts this evening, let's talk about AJ Tyson Fury, the big bout, the big one in the making. But what's the latest with there between the Gypsy King and Anthony Joshua?
Well, we've been told that the contract from Frank Warren and Bob Arum at Top Rank, so Fury's 2 promoters on either side of the Atlantic, have lodged this contract with Eddie Hearn and the Matchroom team, and they've been looking through it. There's always going to be to-ing and fro-ing on contracts. I mean, you just have to look at how Matchroom have managed Eddie Hearn has managed Joshua's career, almost micromanaged the fact that, you know, they've almost shackled his personality in order to be mainstream. Yeah. But as we've alluded to on this show before, he came from a tough upbringing and was in court for various things, and you actually saw his true personality come out at the end of the Usyk fight when he grabbed the mic and was effing and jeffing all over the shop. That really was probably the true Joshua thing. So his career's been micromanaged really by Eddie Hearn, and they will micromanage the contract. What's in it for them? What's in it for him? Is there a rematch clause in here? Blah 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 blah. So it takes a while, and Fury is not the most patient of people, and if you don't get the contract back within about 48 hours, he did his deal with Wilder 1 in 48 hours. So the Fury camp moves quite quick, but the Matchroom doesn't. And he got on the socials yesterday and was going, shit's house, yes, sausage, sign the contract. I mean, look, you could look at it from an angle that Joshua's made for life. The next generation of his family is made for life. But people want to get in there and they want to fight for the best possible price. No one's going to do it for free, even though Fury did say he would fight Joshua for free. And then the week later, he wanted 500 mil.
70-30 split, isn't it?
I think it's 60-40, actually.
60-40. It's still weighted in obviously Fury's favour.
I mean, look, listen, when you're talking millions, does it really matter? I might as well just do 50-50. Both have got more money than you can spend. I guess arguably, I would guess it's probably just maybe the side. I'm the A side and you're the B side, and you get all this to-ing and fro-ing over that. But I think when you've got hundreds of millions in the bank, which they have, what's it matter over 60-40 split?
You can get ego in everything, Matt. You know that. You can get egos in certain things that are small time. I imagine heavyweight boxing. It comes through. You know, it must be a lot. Look, I'm the top dog here. You're lucky you're getting this contract. I want XYZ. You know, Joshua's got to look after himself. But
that's a very good point. That's probably part of the conversation, in that, you know, Joshua's now lost 2 fights on the trot. And Fury's just knocked out Dillian White at Wembley, and he's sitting there saying, I'm giving you an opportunity here. Yeah. Albeit you could lose 3 on the trot. Yeah, I mean, we did say that on this show, didn't we? That might be the glimmer of light for Joshua if he were to lose the rematch, was that the voluntary defence for Fury would be Joshua for the WBC, and that's what they're trying to do.
You mentioned obviously earlier Canelos in the wilderness. Joshua's in the wilderness if he doesn't take this fight. What's really box office out there for him at this point? Not a great deal now.
No, it's not really. Perhaps it is. Perhaps they are thinking the end is near, and it is a bit of a money grab. I mean, it would be in the wilderness regardless, because, like, I mean, if he was to lose, he's then lost 3 fights on the trot, which I don't really think there's any comeback from that. So maybe, you know, Joshua's lost his way, hasn't he? Like we've said on the show previous, he's suddenly gone from this wrecking ball, a bit like Joe Joyce, who we'll discuss in a minute. He's gone from this wrecking ball, who was just like knocking people out for fun, to suddenly going, actually, I'm going to fight Usyk. I'll fight him at his own game. I'm going to get behind the jab and show a bit movement. No,
Just
stick.
knock him out.
Yeah, stick with that. Don't try and show us you're an all-rounder. It's not going to work.
You'll have to do that with Fury. What makes it a really interesting fight? It's sort of, trapped. You're being trapped into a corner. You've got to come out fighting, because if you lose, you're very well and truly beaten.
He has a far better opportunity of knocking out Fury, who's been down multiple times.
And what a great thing that would be. That would be a great comeback. Albeit you get a rematch, I've got no doubt. But it puts you back in the competition, back in the conversation of things like this. Trevor Amos, the fight everyone wants is Fury versus Usyk to unify the titles. They do. But AJ has to get himself back into the conversation. And to do that...
as a spectacle, as a stadium fight in the UK, they're talking December the 3rd, which is why the contracts have to be signed pretty quick, because then suddenly you've got the promo. And not that it would have... I mean, they could fight on a week's notice and you'd sell out.
Wouldn't need too much promo, would it? No.
Do you know what I mean? You ain't going to need too much promo. But while we've got the umming and ahhing over the contracts, Manuel Char, who has been a periphery champion for a long time, quite inactive, and someone that Fury's always quite admired. I think he was either, as a youngster, stabbed or shot or something, and nearly lost his life on the operating table. And he come back and picked up this periphery WBA title. So he's been floating around. I think Fury's always kind of admired him, has referenced him a few times, and he'd like to give him a payday, I think. So I think if Joshua doesn't come through with the contract on this occasion, you could probably see Fury just have a tune-up against Manuel Char and say, here, mate, is $5 million. Do you know what I mean? Finish your career.
I wish my mates would give me $5 million. That'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's pretty good, isn't it? But I mean, so obviously that's not going to be as spectacle as what Joshua and Fury would be, but that's probably the B plan, I think, if the contracts aren't signed pretty darn quick. And you probably got to think by first week of October, that gives you then 2 months to get it all into place, don't you?
Any whispers as to what the hold up is? Is it certain wording? Is it certain... Mrs. Boxing come down to bloody glove choice, can't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? I don't know. I think Eddie did an interview the other day saying it might not happen. He often does this just to dangle this, just to put the pressure on Warren. Listen, there's no love lost between Hearn and Warren. Because they've been the top dogs in boxing promotion in the UK, and as you said earlier, everyone wants to be the top dog, and so the fact that they're having to deal with each other causes issues in itself, I would imagine. But and actually, the only loser in all of this is actually the fans who who will pay the 30 quid, which is what it would be for the evening.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of comments. Thomas Chackerman, loving the live right now. Keep it up, you two. Thank you, Thomas. Carl, AJ struggles against the smaller man. Look at him versus Ruiz. He boxed and moved against Parker, lost to Usyk. Although Fury is unreal, AJ has a better chance against Fury than he ever did against Alexander.
I totally agree with that, because you can Wilder put Fury down 3 times in 3 fights. I'd imagine if Wilder can do that, I would imagine Joshua could. But whether or not he's got the boxing brain to get inside where you'd have to hurt Fury, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, both that's the heavyweight bout that we want to see, and the one we will see this evening live on BT Box Office is, of course, Joseph Parker. I mentioned this at the top of the show, Matt. Joyce undefeated, Parker a 70% knockout rate. This has got a knockout all over it tonight, isn't it?
Well, you say that, but a lot of people are thinking points. We'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's never been more of an apt nickname for a boxer than for Joe Joyce, the Juggernaut. I'd argue maybe the oil tank could be a good name for it, because he's bloody slow and looks like you could around the ring. And it takes him an hour to turn, but I mean, look, listen, he's got 13 knockouts, like you say, 13 knockouts in 14 fights, and you hit him on the whiskers, and he just keeps walking. Maybe he should be called the Terminator. Look, we're coming up with multiple nicknames here for Joe Joyce.
We are.
And he beat Daniel Dubois, who now holds that Manuel Char periphery WBA title we were talking about earlier. And he stopped him in 10 rounds and made Dubois quit, really. I mean, Dubois looked like he was the one that would win that fight and go on and fight for, the big titles.
Yeah,
but Joyce, in front of a lockdown crowd, I can't remember where it was now, but it was in front of about 50 people. I think it was a shame, because it would have probably sold out O2. And he stopped him in 10 and quit on his knee, Dubois, because he orbital socket around his eye was knackered, and he thought, "It's not this. I want to save my sight, and B, I want to fight another day." So from there on in, I think Joyce has had a lot of respect in the industry from them, because I think a lot of people thought he would lose that. So this evening is for doesn't sound much on paper, the WBO interim title. What this actually means, reading between the lines, is that if there were to be problems with Usyk in the future and he drops the WBO belt for whatever reason, whoever wins this fight tonight is automatically made champion.
Nice.
So if the title didn't get dropped, yeah, exactly, and that's not bad, is it? You're now an official world champion. You ain't got to throw a punch. That's not bad, is it?
No.
And then if that doesn't happen, you're probably looking at them being a mandatory at some point for Usyk. So it looks like either Joyce or Parker will have a world title fight. If all the fury, the AJ, the Usyk doesn't materialize, one of these two is going to be in for the running. And of course, Parker's held the WBO title before, New Zealander, and he was someone who actually who benefited from Fury. You'll remember Fury won all the titles in Dusseldorf against Klitschko, and then he came back to the UK, had all those issues, and then all the belts separated.
Yep, got fragmented. Yeah.
And then which no one really likes to see in the heavyweight division. You like to see one champion, as we've discussed before. But Parker benefited from that, and on that title he beat Andy Ruiz. Again, another name who's been doing the cycle. And then, of course, he lost his title to Joshua. I think it was in Cardiff. And there's the problem with Parker. Like you say, he's got a really great knockout percentage, but he seems to switch off in the big fights. Like he fought Tyson's cousin Huey, absolute bore fest of a fight. The Joshua fight was.
Is it stage fright, do you think?
I don't know what it is. I don't no particularly.
Big lights come on, big lights, big moments. What's the block then?
He discussed this in the media this week, and he said, he's been living up in Morecambe, training with the Fury camp, and even lodging in the attic of Fury's house. So, and he's got Andy Lee in his corner tonight, who's been part of the Fury camp since he went back to Sugar Hill and the Kronk Gym. And he said, I kind of lost the love of it a little bit. Again, like Fury, he won a title, and he was like, oh God, am I really doing this for the right reasons? And he looked lackluster in fights. And then he fought Dillian White, a fight I thought he would win. And he got floored, I think, in the first round, maybe. People in the comments can tell me. I think he got floored in the first round and was well behind on points. And he actually rallied right at the end and dropped White, and was probably unlucky not to get a knockout win himself. So he'd like to avenge that loss. But yeah, I just feel like he's maybe had some issues that we didn't know about, and he was switching off in fights. I mean, he's fought, he's had since losing to White, he's had 6 fights and he's won them all. 2 of those against Del Boy, your favourite. Why they had a rematch on that one, I don't know.
Good old Del Boy, there he is.
But I think Del Boy's, albeit smaller in size, is similar to Joyce in that he likes to come forward and you can hit him with a lot of lever and he doesn't really move. I mean, it took a hell of a shot for someone like Dillian White to knock him out in the end. But, he's going to have to be switched on, Parker, tonight, and he will try and use his fleet of foot. And like you say, he's got a good knockout punch, but Joyce will just walk forward. And, my feeling on it is that probably Joyce will. I don't think he'll stop him, but I think he'll probably. I think he could stop him. I mean, look what he did to Dubai. He could do the same damage that with that jab. And Parker's cool. Andy Lee might say, "Look, that's enough. We'll fight another day." I think probably Joyce on points is where I'm probably leaning to, and then that will bring Joyce into the world title frame. And of course, people might not know. You can watch this on YouTube. There used to be a world series of boxing in the amateur circle, of which Joyce was a member of the British Lionhearts, and Usyk, as an amateur, was a member of the Ukraine Ottomans, they were called, and they had the World Series between those two teams, and those two fought over 5 rounds at the York Hall, London, back in 2013, of which Usyk won every round, 10-9. So he won easily. But they've got history, so they've done 5 rounds together already. So you could well see, if Joyce was to win tonight, as we say, you could well see him fight Usyk in the professional ring.
There we go. And that would be an interesting match in itself. We've got some comments. Carl Brooks, Parker on points for me. Trevor can see Joyce, Parker going the distance, and split decision wouldn't like to say which way.
Who knows with the judges? Absolutely.
Carl with a bit more meat on the bone. So I think Parker and AJ are similar in the fact they've both kind of gone away from what they're good at, what got them both into contention. They both need to get back to being ruthless, which is what Andy Lee, I think, will probably bring to to the
Yeah,
party.
Andy Lee's he was a world champion himself, and he's probably a good guy for certainly with him and Sugar Hill kind of gave you Tyson Fury 2.0, the guy who will come in and knock Wilder out and knock Dillian White out. Maybe Andy Lee can serve that same magic for Parker. He's a very affable guy, Parker. Joyce is a funny character. He turned to boxing because he actually wanted to be in athletics, I believe. He's from Putney. Tonight's fight's in Manchester, but he's from London. And injuries stopped him from doing athletics. His athletics dream died. And I think about 22 years of age, he just went to keep fit classes to get over his injuries and turned to boxing. And here we are now. He's sort of said to himself, in interviews, I don't really like boxing particularly. I'm just good at it. I mean, he's got all the attributes. He's 6'6". He's got a jab of iron. Yeah. And he's got a chin. We said this last week with Golovkin. He's got a chin that you just can't train. You smack him on the face. I mean, someone said he's really good at blocking. He just uses his face. And no one's come close to hurting him. So Parker's really going to have to, similar to what Golovkin didn't do last week, in that he's going to have to get inside and throw combinations if you're going to hurt him. And even that might not be enough, which is why I lean towards Joyce winning on points. Interestingly, tonight, we talk about Hearn, Warren, the big fight can't get made because of promotions. Tonight is a cross-promoter event, albeit on BT Box Office, because you've got Frank Warren looking after Joe Joyce, and the new kid on the scene who took Hearn's dates on Sky Sports, Ben Shalom, who runs Boxer out of Manchester. He's got Parker. So these are actually two promoters that have come together, no beef there, and said, we can make this fight. And they have, which is beautiful, because that's all the fans want to see. Again, where we might lose out on fights where promoters can't agree or don't like each other and they won't negotiate. These have just said, let's get it on. Which is great.
Let's get it on, baby. Let's get it on. It's what you want to see as fans. You want to see that. You want to see that. Sort of get it on attitude.
Absolutely. 20 quid on Box Office. On the undercard is Amanda Serrano, and we did Talking Knockouts for her fight against Katie Taylor, which was absolutely phenomenal fight. Yeah. And she's gone down in weight to featherweight, I think, this evening, and going for another world title. So if you like Amanda Serrano, she's on that card tonight. Worth watching.
You go. Nice little card. Before we move on to the review of a fight that happened last night.
Shakur Stevenson. Yep.
Shakur Stevenson. Yeah. We've got Metal Jays. Off topic, but Trilogy, did you enjoy the most? Sorry, what Trilogy did you enjoy the most? Morales versus Barrera or Gatti versus Ward?
Yeah, we spoke about trilogies last week, didn't we? Yeah, I'm all in on the Morales Barrera one. I mean, you just can't. I just think that they were phenomenal. And but yeah, I mean, look, Gatti Ward. It's tossing a coin. Tomorrow I might give you a different answer. Yeah. I mean, look, Gatti Ward was so exciting. They made a film from it. So I'm just pleased that those fights are there in the archive for people to be able to watch on YouTube. Because back in the day, you would have to hunt it out video collectors just to have that as to watch that again. So we're blessed with the internet; we can watch these back. But yeah, I mean, in isolation, all great fights, brilliant. There we
go. Right, Shakur Stevenson. I missed it. So what happened? Break it down for us.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I missed it as well because I thought it was this evening. It was on Sky last night. So Shakur Stevenson, if you've been watching the show, this is someone I think is going to be like the next Mayweather. There's something about him, albeit as a southpaw. There's something about him that is, I don't know, Floyd-esque, I think, and certainly Floyd-esque in his early career. Yeah, rather than taking the money and just hiding, quite defensively on these big pay-per-view events. But yeah, this is he kind of reminds me of Floyd coming through, or maybe not with the same knockout power. But yeah, so he held now WBC, WBO, and the ring title at Super Feather. Gets to the Thursday, gets onto the scales, came in heavy, stripped of the titles. And this is against Conceição from Brazil. So Conceição, to credit, could have just said, fights off, I get me money, which was $250,000.
Yeah.
And I get to fight for the vacant titles. But all credit to him, he said, I will fight. He also got a percentage of Shakur Stevenson's $3 million purse. So that always sweetens
the deal. It a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So only Conceição could win the titles, and Stevenson won easy on points. I think he dropped him in the second or the fourth round. I think a bit of a debatable knockdown. To my eyes, it looked like Shakur hit him on the leg, gave him a dead leg, and down he went. I'll have to watch that back. But I mean, look, it was unanimous. And afterwards, Shakur said, "I'm done here at this weight. I can't make the weight anymore. I'm going to go up to lightweight." Which is music to everyone's ears because lightweight is now the division We're talking about, the big guys, heavyweight, fantastic. But the names, the killers that are out floating around the lightweight division's unbelievable. You've got Devin Haney, George Kambosos, Lomachenko, Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, and now Shakur Stevenson joining. I probably even missed out some people there.
Yes.
Such is the list. Again, whether or not the promoters all can work together in order to get all those fights made, I don't know. But if you go onto the Ring Magazine's ratings in the lightweights, look at the 1 to 10, and now Shakur's joining them. That's going to be an absolutely phenomenal division in 2023. Very
Carl
exciting.
Brooks, lightweight division is incredible. Massive fan of Tank.
Tank is Floyd's. Tank Davis, 5'3", is but hits like a tank. He ain't called. He's not called Tank by accident. And he's Floyd's protege. But I mean, Shakur's going to be looking at all these guys and saying, "Bring it on." And Tank Davis will say, "Yep, I'll have a bit of that. Thank you very much."
What do you expect his first fight to be?
I don't know who it would be. I mean, you've got Devin Haney versus George Kambosos 2 for all the belts.
All the marbles.
All the marbles on October the 15th in Australia. That's where Kambosos is from. I'd imagine Haney will win that quite handedly. I have absolutely no idea. Lomachenko will probably be eyeing Devin Haney. They're all going to be eyeing Devin Haney, but it would be great to see even you could have some kind of mini tournament to as eliminators to get to all the belts, you know what I mean? Ooh, so that'd be quite exciting. But again, whether or not promoters would do that, I don't know. But you have seen that in the Sauerlands, Cal Sauerland. They've done like little mini tournaments for that, and you end up with unified champions. Yeah, there we go. WBSS, World Boxing Super Series. Yeah, absolutely. And Usyk won the Muhammad Ali title as well on the back of that. Yeah, I'd love to see that as well, but politics, man. There's more politics in boxing than Westminster, let me tell you.
There we go. Right on that one. Is there anything else before we depart?
No, I think we're going to be back for October the 8th is Ben Eubank, isn't it? So yep. we'll do a talking knockouts for that one. But yeah, enjoy the fights tonight. Be decent.
Absolutely. There you go. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button. Thanks for commenting. If you're watching on catch up, do leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of the fight, if it's after the fight, or what you expect to see if it's before the fight. But Joyce, Parker, Matt is expecting a points win for Joyce. I'm going to go for a knockout. Joyce is a silver medalist, so I mean, it's hard to look past the background of him. But I'm going to go Parker just so we split on the show. Parker knockout, and then from there, who knows? But until October the 8th, with love, with care. Catch you later.